The problems facing Rishi Sunak are only going to grow as this year advances. I don't think he's going to face a real challenge from the Conservative Party. The challenge is going to come from the successor to UKIP, the successor to the Brexit Party, the Reform Party, and a man called Richard Tice. Richard Tice, I think, is going to be calling all the tricks over the next year, and I think we're going to see him getting bigger and bigger. And Farage will be the old man in the Tice rear window. Farage and Rees-Mogg together. Well, they're both now on telly. They're both employed by television channels to do their bit about the news. And I think actually that's where they belong. Farage is incredibly affable on television, and I'm sure Rees-Mogg will make himself very comfortable in an interviewer's chair. In fact, I think he would be ideally placed for that. So I think, the baton has been handed on to another generation, the baton of Brexit. And you may ask, where can Brexit go from here? Well, actually, there's a long way. You may think, I think, Suella Braverman is evil and wrong, but that's until one starts looking at Richard Tice and what Tice is proposing. And I may have thought in the past that UKIP was possibly racist. I may have thought that. Indeed, is one of the reasons that I joined UKIP, so that I could see whether or not it really was racist. It was. It wasn't racist in the way I expected. The racism was in the bureaucracy, not in the outward appearance. The outward appearance was basically a lot of disgruntled Conservatives joining the party because they wanted somewhere to express their Euroscepticism in a concrete and directed way. No, the racism was much more deeply embedded, and when I called it out, Nigel Farage was in no position to challenge it. He couldn't challenge it because it lay at the heart of the UKIP programme, and it's at the heart of Reform UK. And we don't see it in the Reform UK has got quite interesting and quite positive plans about, for example, reforming the NHS. It suggests that the nurses and doctors, those who are immediately evident, should be given 3 years with abolished income tax to encourage more nurses to sign up, to encourage more doctors to devote themselves to the NHS, and to get the system working again. And I think also to draw a line between those people in the NHS who are actively doing medicine and those bureaucrats who are wasting our time. I would entirely support Tice's efforts to clean up the NHS on that basis. I don't think we need, at this moment, a lot of bureaucratic moving around. We need, instead, to use the tools that we've already got and to improve the morale of the NHS. I think that is about abolishing income tax. That's about providing free parking for nurses. That's about reducing the bureaucratic burden on the active members of the NHS. If the bureaucrats want to increase their own bureaucracy, well, maybe they can be suffocated out of the system by having that put back on them. So those doctors who are now forced to answer complaints, that should be given back to the bureaucrats. Doctors should not be made to do the pointless bureaucracy, which can be done by the bureaucrats. Otherwise, what are the bureaucrats doing for their huge amount of money? Then, in the same way, I suspect we should be reforming GP practice. That much I can agree with Tice. What I can't agree with Tice, of course, is his plans for immigration, which are more extreme than Suella Braverman's. And I suspect, in a way of seeing Tice off, the Conservative Party and Suella Braverman may well pick up Tice's plans on immigration. In fact, it's more likely that they will pick up the immigration plans than the NHS plans. The immigration plans are brutal. They involve declaring a national emergency, leaving the European Convention on Human Rights, allowing no resettlement of immigrants who've come here illegally. That's already on the cards. And picking up and taking back to France. In other words, the British equivalent of the Greek pushback. I think this will cause problems internationally. It will be condemned internationally, and rightly so. But it's already there in the Reform UK rulebook. Now, let's not be distracted by what else is going on in the Conservative Party and on the political horizon this year. Liz Truss and all the pro-growth people still chirping on around the backbenches of the Conservative Party. Waste of time, waste of time. Even a waste of time, the Boris publicity campaign, the memoirs that he's signed up to write. Of course, we know from his Churchill experience that what he's signed up to write he may not do, and his host of ghostwriter friends may not be up to it and may not be fully paid. So, is he going to get any help? No. Those memoirs may be lingering for some time, but if he gets his act together, if he can find time to sit down and write the memoirs in time, they will help him stage whatever attempted comeback he can, but he's got a very, very short window of opportunity, because by May, he will probably be facing the Privileges Committee on television in front of Harriet Harman, who will be stern and who will be clinical. Now, if Boris plays this one correctly, he will be entertaining, he will be dynamic, and he will be able to defend himself. He will dominate the sessions. The evidence will be less significant than his performance. And coming round about May, it will eclipse the performance of Rishi Sunak to try and pull the Conservative Party back together in time for the the local elections. The local election results will be dire, and Sunak will be blamed, and the mantle of Conservative power may well, for a moment, look as if it will transfer back to Boris. I think it will be an illusion. First of all, I don't think Boris will have his memoirs out in time. Secondly, I think in terms of the Privileges Committee, it's more likely to come across as a sort of draw between Harriet Harman and Boris. Boris is not going to be destroyed by this, but that's not the aim. Boris is not going to win. And the only winners in this race will be Reform UK, who will be looking on from the sidelines. Now, are they going to win lots of seats in the House of Parliament at the general election? No, of course not. At the moment, I think they've got 700 candidates for the general election. They're looking at a sort of UKIP situation. UKIP didn't win any seats, and nor will Reform UK. What they will do is take votes away from the Conservative Party. They will take morale away from the Conservative Party, and it will not just simply be a nudging election victory for Keir Starmer. I think with the help of the Reform UK party, it will be an electoral rout. Now, Rishi Sunak can deal with that, but he has to do so now. And the only way to deal with that is to pull those Reform UK people back into the Conservative ranks. I think also Rishi Sunak needs to squash Reform UK for the sake of the country. I think the Brexit discussion needs to be over for the sake of the country, not just for the sake of the Conservative Party, but for the sake of the country. I don't think Rishi Sunak can possibly win the next election. But he can leave the country in a position that is more governable if he gets rid of Reform UK. That is the only legacy he can offer our country. That, and of course suppressing any thought of a revival of Liz Truss. Liz Truss just needs to go, and preferably not to take her ridiculous messages to America. She just needs to go. She had her day. Her day is done.